Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 589. 589. October the 26th, 2018, Friday. Thank you so much for tuning in and happy Friday. Let's get started. Meghan Smelly. Meghan Smelly has been fired by NBC. But she still gets to walk away with a cool $69 million. $69 million severance package. Unfortunately for Meghan Smelly, $69 million will not buy you a reputation, and it certainly won't fund her ego, which is probably what was her biggest loss. Apparently this results from a comment she made about these blackface, and I think she was referring to the old 1940s show where the two white guys painted their faces with black makeup and pretended to be black guys. All right, so I think she was saying that she was not all offended by people wearing black on their face. Well, that was kind of a stupid comment. Not that I totally disagree with that, but you know, on a liberal network like that in these times, it was a very stupid comment to make. And so I don't know if she was trying to get fired, or I kind of get the feeling that NBC has wanted to fire Meghan Smelly for quite some time, and they were really just looking for the reason, and I think she gave them the reason with that comment. Let's not forget that Meghan Smelly was the person who was targeted to be the assassin of Trump and his political aspirations in 2016. She was the one that was put in the chair to be the one who was supposed to take down Trump and take him out of the presidential campaign in August of 2015, when she led off that debate by asking Trump about all the horrible names that he called women. Dogs, pigs, goats, and all the other things, to which Trump humorously replied, "Only Rosie O'Donnell." And then he talked about, of course, Meghan Smelly having blood coming out her eyes and ears and everywhere else. So anyway, it's not been a pleasant ride for Meghan Smelly. I don't think she's ever gone over there at NBC. I understand she's a pretty difficult person to work with. She's kind of snotty and uppity. I don't think the folks over there really like the fact that she came from Fox. A lot of people from Fox really didn't like her, especially once she tried to do the hit job on Trump in that first debate. And something else about Meghan Smelly, if I can just remember what it was. Either way, oh yeah, there are murmurs, and there have been rumors for the past year, really, that she has actually wanted to get out of her contract, but she had $69 million, and so she didn't want to walk away from that unless Fox would take her back. So the rumor has been for like a year that she had been trying to secretly back channel and negotiate with Fox to take her back and buy her out of that contract, which is what they would have to do. They would have had to have bought her out of her $69 million deal, which they weren't going to do. The fact is, the majority of people that actually worked there at Fox and had worked around her don't want her back. They don't want Meghan Smelly back. Of course, that decision would be made by Rupert Murdoch's son, his oldest son, who apparently liked Meghan Smelly, and he's a big lib, and he runs, he used to run Sky News, which is a real hardcore left-wing sort of deal. So anyway, things have not gone well for Meghan Smelly. She's been fired. She's going to walk away from the table with $69 million. She wants to come back to Fox. I don't think that'll happen. I think her media career is pretty much done. I look for her probably to hook up with Michael Avenetti and file a sexual harassment lawsuit against someone at NBC, just so that she can stay in the public eye. Because that's where she needs to be, because she has a gigantic ego. Gigantic. Chuck Grassley has sent a criminal referral to the Department of Justice on Avenetti and Swetnick. And he lists 3 specific things that they should be investigated for. Number 1, making false statements. Number 2, obstructing congressional investigations. And number 3, conspiracy. My. That's a full plate. That should keep no shit Sherlock Ray over there at the Federal Bureau of I'm With Her quite busy working on that for the Department of Justice, who we all know will be all over this, right? It's been kind of a rough week for Avenetti. Right now, he's trying to defend himself against claims that he allegedly said that in 2020, Democrats need to elect a white guy, or need to nominate a white guy, and he thinks it should be him. This guy has no political future. In fact, he might be in jail or in bankruptcy court. He'll certainly be in bankruptcy court, but he might be in jail as well by 2020. Well, the Mexican trucking company Express San Javier holds a Department of Transportation license, a DOT license, in the United States. And they are conducting illegal operations. They are moving illegal migrants to the U.S. border. Now, they should have their DOT license revoked. You're not allowed to do that. I know a guy who was a truck driver. He's actually a good old boy. I actually like this guy. He was a good old boy, but he made a big mistake. Someone waved $10,000 under his nose. He used to run big rigs, and he ran all across the country, and someone rubbed 10 grand under his nose and said, will you load up your truck with a bunch of these illegals and bring them into the U.S.? He couldn't turn down the 10 grand. He brought them into the U.S. and he got caught. Did like 8 or 9 years in prison. Now he's a teacher at a truck driving school. He can't get a DOT license anymore. But he's a teacher and teaches other people how to drive trucks. He's a good old boy. I actually like this guy. But he made a big mistake. And none of the illegals in his truck were even harmed or killed. There are other truckers who've brought these people in. They open up the doors and the people are dead. That didn't happen to him, but just getting caught bringing him over the border, he served almost 10 years in prison for it and paid a hell of a fine. It bankrupted him and ruined his life. He's still paying off the debt. Yep, drove for, 2 or 3 big major companies. Holland, I think he was driving for Holland at the time when this happened. So, who is paying Express San Javier? Who is paying them to move these illegals in this caravan for the salsa invasion? Who's paying them? Well, I think we all know. It's groups connected to George Soros. And George Soros is connected to groups that are connected with the Clintons, the Obamas, and all the rest. This is as I've said many times before, this is a global crime syndicate. A global crime syndicate. And Soros is one of the key mob bosses of the global crime syndicate. He's one of the top tier mob bosses. And we know that this stuff, we know the groups that are associated with the activists who are behind this, and we know who they're associated with. I mean, it's not that hard to sniff this thing out. It really isn't. But yes, they should have their DOT license revoked. Papadopoulos was interviewed on Thursday by the House Joint Committee. Ratcliffe was on Fox News, and he said that after interviewing Papadopoulos that it's hard to understand why the FBI opened their investigation based on Papadopoulos. Because he knows what Papadopoulos told the FBI about what he told Halper. And now that he is told under oath, he has stated under oath in this hearing that he did not say anything to the best of his knowledge, and he says he remembers the conversation very well between he and Down the Hatch Downer, and he says he does not recall and does not believe he said anything to Downer about Russians having Clinton emails or even discussing Clinton emails. Says it didn't even come up in the conversation. Yet that's what allegedly started all this, according to the FBI and DOJ. Operation Crossfire Hurricane was Downer telling someone, it's still not clear exactly who he told, we have various different versions, but Downer's information about Papadopoulos telling him that the Russians had the emails, finding its way into the FBI, who then opened their investigation. But Papadopoulos is telling these, there was two Republicans, Meadows and, it was Meadows and Ratcliffe, and a Democrat who interviewed Papadopoulos. Just those three. But apparently this is what he told them, which is what he's been saying on TV. That he does not recall, and he recalls the conversation very well. Says he doesn't recall telling Downer anything about, or even having a conversation of Russians and emails. Never even came up. But this is the reason that the DOJ and the FBI say they launched Operation Crossfire Hurricane, because of information they got from Downer. He also told Halper that he didn't want anything to do with it, and that was their confidential informant. So if their confidential informant told them that Papadopoulos didn't bite, and they went ahead with the investigation anyway, and if Downer never heard a word out of Papadopoulos' mouth about Russians having Hillary's hacked emails, but he went and told someone, either at the U.S. Embassy in London, or he passed it through to someone in Australian intelligence, or directly to someone in the State Department. However, if that didn't happen, and that can be proven, we know the first thing can be proven because they have the transcripts. That exculpatory evidence that Papadopoulos told Halper to bug off, and he didn't know anything. We've got those documents. We can prove that. At least we're pretty sure, based on what we've been hearing in these interviews with people who have seen the 20 pages that are redacted pages. But on this other issue with Downer, if they can prove that as well, that, and it probably come down to he said, she said, or he said in this case, but that means that Downer is going to have to, at some point, is going to have to go under oath and tell the truth about whether or not Papadopoulos actually did say something. And they probably should ask Downer if he recorded that conversation. If he did, he's destroyed that tape because he knows it incriminates him. It's all going to come out. It's all going to come out. There'll be points of speculation, things that cannot be proven, but there's something called circumstantial evidence too. And if you can find enough circumstantial evidence, and if you can put together the puzzle correctly, there's a lot of cases that are won on circumstantial evidence. I believe Papadopoulos on this. I really do. I really do. I don't believe he said anything to Downer about Russians having emails. I really don't. We'll continue to follow as this story moves along, but Papadopoulos has made it perfectly clear now he's no longer going to sit back and take it. He's going after heads. He wants to go after the people, just like Carter Page, for different reasons, but he wants to go after the people who framed him. And those 2 weeks in jail that he's about to serve here shortly, he'll probably have a lot more time to think about it and get a little angrier and a little more motivated. And some lawyer, I would think a really good lawyer, would take his case, because Papadopoulos has got a windfall coming his way, as does Carter Page, obviously. Carter Page is going to cash in. He's going to make big bank. He doesn't really need it. Carter Page is a fairly wealthy dude. I don't think it's money for him, but he's going to cash out regardless. John James is now within single digits of Debbie Stabenow in Michigan. Michigan. This poll has him within 6 points. 6 points. That's unbelievable. If he's within 6 points, he's within striking distance. Margin of error is 4. I don't know how large this poll was, but this is called momentum, and this shows that the momentum is clearly going his way. Let me tell you something, folks. Michigan is a race that we're going to know about pretty early on in the evening. I mean, we'll know pretty early on what the results are in Michigan. If John James defeats Stabenow in Michigan, that will basically tell us that there is a massive, massive upset coming for the Democrats, and that the blue tsunami may be real. Right now, I'm not really predicting a blue tsunami or a red tsunami or anything like that. Either way, I'm just predicting the Republicans will narrowly hold on to the House, and they'll pick up, probably 6 Senate seats. That's not a red tsunami. That's just a pretty decent night. Pretty good night. I don't see any tsunamis going either way. Well, I certainly don't see any tsunami or red or blue wave or anything like that going. There's not going to be a blue wave. That's ridiculous. The red tsunami, I don't know what you want to consider a red tsunami. It'll be a big victory, a big win if we hold the House and gain 6 seats in the Senate and pick up some governors. Yeah, that'll be a big night. But I don't know if I'd go to tsunami status. But if John James defeats Stabenow in Michigan, that would be an indicator of a very, very big night for Republicans. That's what that would tell us. And then if it ends up with the governor's race out in California, if John Cox were to win, and I don't think that will happen, I think he'll get better. I think he'll do a lot better than people think. I think that race will be closer than a lot of people think. But if that should happen, that would then be red tsunami. If John Cox wins the governor's race in California, that would be red tsunami. And it would have been, and by then, of course, many other big wins would have happened for Republicans in the midterms by that point. That will not happen as an isolated event. That will happen as part of a much larger event, which would include probably John James winning in Michigan. We'll keep watching that race. John James is a great candidate, by the way. Really, really strong candidate. Debbie Stabenow's pretty used up. She's connected to the Clintons and the whole 9 yards, the whole DNC machine. She's bad news, Michigan. And as well as Trump did in Michigan in 2016, this is a realistic opportunity. I think really we're down to, 12 days? I think if in the next 10 days John James can pull to within margin of error, within 3 or 4 points, I would say there's a very good chance he could win that race. And if he does, that will be an indicator that it's going to be a very, very long night for the Democrats and a very good night for all of us. Get that popcorn ready and your favorite beverage. I think that we'll be celebrating that night anyway. How big is yet to be seen. You could also bet that Trump will make at least one stop to Michigan, especially if he closes within margin of error. Pence has already been there once at least, and Pence is going back. So Pence is going to go up there and campaign for him. If he can pick up a point or two there and get within the margin of error, Trump will absolutely be there. In fact, I think Trump will go there probably, I would assume that Trump will go there at least once. Possibly that might be one of his last stops in the last couple days before the vote. He might go back to Michigan, especially if that race is within the margin of error. He would love to win Michigan, the Senate seat there. He would love to win that Senate seat. John James, good man. Chuck Todd, Sleepy Eye Chuck Todd, says that the mail bombs could be a Russian operation. Yeah, it's the Russians again. Yes, the Russians. No, if the Russians were involved, brother, those wouldn't be cartoon bombs and fake anthrax. It'd be real anthrax, and they'd be real bombs, and there'd be really dead Democrats right now, okay? No, it's not the Russians, Chuck. Nor was it the Russians who attacked Rand Paul. Nor was it the Russians who fired on those Republicans playing baseball and nearly killed Steve Scalise. It wasn't the Russians, Chuck, who assaulted Rudy Peters. It wasn't the Russians that threw bricks and rocks through the windows of Kevin McCarthy's office. It wasn't the Russians that threw bricks through the windows of the GOP office in Wyoming, or assaulted the staffer for Ryan Zinke, or assaulted the staffer for Adam Laxalt, or assaulted Minnesota Representative Shane Marklin, or vandalized the GOP offices in New York and Wyoming, or went into the restaurants and harassed Ted Cruz, Mitch McConnell, Sarah Sanders, Kirstjen Nielsen, and others. It wasn't the Russians who sent actual ricin to Donald Trump Jr., James Mattis, in the Trump White House. Those were actual ricin. Chuck. Was not the Russians, Chuck. It was left-wing fanatics. Like you, Chuck. Now, regarding the Salsa invasion, Mattis is going to deploy, it looks like, about 800 troops in support of, I assume, National Guard and Border Patrol to make sure, and he says they will be stopped. 800, I guess that's good, but you got a caravan here. The Salsa invasion is at least 7,000. Some people say 14,000. By the time it gets to the border, who knows what the number will be. The number could go up or down. It's going to be a lot of thousands of people. 800 troops with the Border Patrol Maybe that's enough. Mattis obviously knows his business. I'm not going to try to double think him, but I will say that my experience, having been on guard duty as a soldier in the U.S. military and having been surrounded by tens of thousands, or at least 10,000 protesters, and these were not angry protesters, these were pacifist type protesters protesting nuclear weapons, but having been surrounded by 10,000 of these with, just a couple hundred of us trying to deal with around 10,000 of them, that when their numbers largely outnumber you, they will push through your line, or certainly try to push through your line. My only thing would be that, yeah, the troops need to be down there, but it needs to be a fairly overwhelming force. It needs to be about 2 to 1. It needs to be such a large force that when they see it, they don't attempt to overrun it. Because I've been in both situations where our forces were large enough that they looked at it and said, well, there's just too many of them. We'll just stop right here and protest right here. But if they have you outnumbered and severely overwhelmed, they will rush your lines and walk right through you and over you. I've been there, my friends. I have been there. Send more. Send 8,000, General Mattis. Send 8,000. That would be my recommendation. The New York Times has published a story one day after, published a story one day before the cartoon pipe bombs started showing up. The story is about assassinating Trump. The story is about a Russian assassin, a female Russian assassin, on a suicide mission to kill Trump. And as she gets to Trump and as she approaches him and pulls out her gun, it misfires. At which point, a Secret Service agent gives her his gun and says, "Here, use mine." And she assassinates the president. That's the story that the New York Times ran one day before all these cartoon pipe bombs begin showing up. That's just despicable. I didn't even know about that. I just read about this yesterday. But now you know. Well. The satanic offspring of the rotten Reverend Clinton and the alleged rapist, Slick Willie, Chelsea Hubble, otherwise known as Chelsea Clinton, says that she won't rule out running for office if a spot opened up where she would be a good fit. In other words, when a spot in some really liberal district in New York opens up where mommy and daddy can buy her a house seat. That's what she's talking about. She's the same one who said it was unchristian to end legal abortion. She's the same one who just wrote a book that nobody even knows is out. By the way, she wrote a book, did you know? It's called Start Now. You Can Make a Difference. She's a chip off the old block. She's as politically stupid as her mother. She definitely didn't take after her father as far as political acumen. Her book is about climate change. It's a hoax. About hunger. Really? Hunger? Doesn't look like she's missed any meals lately. Endangered animals. Endangered animals. Okay, I can kind of get on board with that, I guess. Bullying. Oh, bullying. And health. Maybe she should look into some mental health issues of the Democratic Party. And she probably has some of those TDS issues as well. Maybe that's the type of health issues that Chelsea Hubble is talking about. The Gateway Pundit is saying that law enforcement has a surveillance video of the courier delivering the bomb package to CNN. Well, that's nice. But there's other information out there suggesting that they already know the general location of this individual. And apparently that location is somewhere in Florida. And apparently they have a pretty good idea and have narrowed it down to a couple of people. And it's very likely that by the end of the weekend, before the end of the weekend is up, they will have the individual or individuals responsible for the cartoon bomb hoax. Mark Meadows and Jim Jordan are asking John Huber to appear before Congress. Meadows and Jordan say Huber has not interviewed any key witnesses as far as they know. Meadows says that there's no evidence that Huber has done anything other than be appointed by Jeff Sessions. Huber, of course, was an Obama appointee in 2015. Yeah, there's a lot of people who think that Huber, working with Sessions, is running a secret investigation. They've got thousands of unsealed indictments and all this kind of stuff, which would be fantastic if that were true. I've seen no evidence of that. But if it is true, fantastic. But if not, we need to know that too. Yes, he should come and testify. It can be a closed session, but at some point, since he's been appointed, we know nothing. And he at least needs to let the Congress know, who have oversight, he needs to let them know how his investigation is going. It's time for a progress report from Mr. Huber. I agree with Meadows and Jordan. Now maybe he'll say, "Hey guys, I got thousands of indictments. Just hold on to your stuff. It's all coming out." And they'd probably go, "Great, that's all we needed to know. Thank you." Typically, these investigations, though, they don't like to talk about them. They're secret investigations or secret sealed indictments. Whether or not members of Congress have a right to know about secret investigations being conducted by the DOJ, I'm not sure. That gets into some pretty murky territory, would be my guess. But I agree with him. I'd like to know what Huber's got. If he's interviewed anybody, if he's doing anything. 200 liberal, loony propagandists posing as journalists have signed a letter condemning Trump for violence against the press. He's not conducted any violence against the press. He's simply told the truth, which is that they lie, which is what everybody else has known for a very long time. Haven't they looked at their approval ratings? They're down in the 20s. Everybody knows they lie. It's just that Trump is the first president with the cojones to actually say it, what everybody else has known forever. So Trump was at a rally, and he said, in response to that, "The anger we see today in our society is caused by the purposefully false and inaccurate reporting of the mainstream media." The anger we see today in our society is caused by the purposely false and inaccurate reporting of the mainstream media. That's exactly right. And this idea that because the president goes out and tells the truth and calls the fake news is somehow makes him responsible or even justifies people sending cartoon bombs to Democrats is a joke. That's a joke. It's ridiculous. If these were real bombs and they were real dangerous bombs or real ricin or real anthrax or whatever, you would have a sick lunatic on your hands. And nothing that the president or anyone else has said should be used as an excuse to justify some nutcase doing something like that. Political discourse gets rough and tumble in this country, as it does in every country, as it has for a very, very long time. There will never be a justification to use violence or sending pipe bombs or doing any of this kind of crap. That's a deranged person, not a normal, sane person. And to try to make the argument that somehow a president or anyone, whether it's you or I or a media pundit or anyone else, calling out the media for being fake, which they are, trying to use that to go after the president again is just more fake news by the fake news. Screw the fake news. I hope Trump doubles down. I hope he doubles down. He should. He'll win that fight. You know, when you look at it, the commie-crats have had some pretty interesting luck in the last couple of months, wouldn't you say? Let's look at the facts. Here we have Judge Kavanaugh going through his confirmation process, and at the end of his confirmation process, right at the end, just before the recommendation is about to go forward to make him the next Supreme Court justice, we get a 40-year-old sex scandal from some lunatic left-winger in California, who apparently practices a lot of strange things having to do with lying and hypnosis and self-hypnosis. She seems to have connections to people like Confusion GPS, intelligence agencies, mind control programs, and things and such. So isn't it strange that that would pop up the night before they're ready to send his recommendation for his confirmation? And then, talk about luck, the next thing that happens, we get the salsa invasion. My oh my, just a organic grassroots uprising of thousands of Hondurans and Guatemalans and God knows who else who decide to rush the U.S. border. Good timing, huh? Just before the midterms. What luck? And now we get cartoon mail bombs and white powder just in time for the midterms. And who would all these things help? Democrats. Who would they all conceivably hurt? Republicans, and specifically Trump. What luck the Democrats are having. So, what's going on here? Well, regarding this particular cartoon bomb gag, either the perpetrator is a monumental idiot, or he is a dupe being manipulated by a very clever group of Trump-hating globalists. It's either a monumental idiot or a dupe being manipulated by a very clever group of Trump-hating globalists. I watched a funny video on CNN, which just about all videos on CNN are funny to me. And you had this host down in Florida named Randy Kay who went to Florida to interview Democrat voters and asked them what they thought about the rotten Reverend Clinton campaigning for Gillum. There were 7 of them that she was interviewing at one time in this interview. She asked them if the rotten Reverend Clinton was a liability. 6 of the 7 said yes, she is a liability. They also made comments like, no one trusts her. She makes a lot of big mistakes. She's relitigating 2016. Since 2016, she's been on a self-indulgent platform. And her denial of Bill Clinton abuse of power with Monica Lewinsky is totally unacceptable. Then they go to Robbie Mook to get his opinion on what these Democratic voters said, and he says he just can't believe what he's hearing. He also said that Gillum is a must-win, and that's why Hillary went there. Really? You think that Gillum is a must-win, Robbie? And that's why the rotten Reverend Clinton went there? He also said that she's raised $2 million for him. He also said that the rotten Reverend Clinton got more votes than Obama and is very popular. Robbie Mook. Yes, coming from the man who took $1.2 billion and got his ass kicked by an opponent who only had half that much money. And he had the entire liberal media and practically the entire planet of government leaders on his side. Everything going for him. Everything going for him. Had double the money, and he still lost. Why are they asking this guy his opinion on anything? Now, I know that a lot of you come here to TowerGate every day to tune in for information on the latest information on the Spygate frame-up thing, which is the primary thing we talk about here. Of course, now we're talking a lot about the elections. You come here to get information about other stories, other subjects, sometimes a little humor, mixed with some serious commentary. But some people will come here looking maybe for some great truth, some great introspection, some great thing that I have going on that I can somehow see things that other people can't see, and there's some great truth that I have discovered or that I know, or that have some great insight or something like that. And generally speaking, none of that's true. But I will say one thing, that we have learned one incredible thing since following this story, since watching this going all the way back to 2016. One thing I'm now convinced of, one great truth that I have truly learned as a result of all of this, is the following. The Roadrunner was a Republican, and Wile E. Coyote was a loony left-wing Democrat. Wile E. Coyote was a Democrat. That's what I've learned. Thanks so much for tuning in. See y'all. Bye.